I was north of Fort Wilkins East Campground. I had stopped off there to get a look at Lake Superior. It was late November day, and things were getting choppy. No one else was out there. It was maybe a half an hour from sunset. Gloomy, gray. I took the dogs there. 3 dogs. They liked to run on the red rock beach. And one of them, a black lab shepherd mix, Cooter, loved any chance he could get to jump in any water he could. The other 2 dogs were more conservative with the water, but loved sniffling and running around the woods along the shoreline. My dogs always stayed close to me whenever we went out. They had been cohorting over the east side of the shore as I was walking due west. I could hear them barking and splashing and whatnot behind me. Then, all of a sound from them just suddenly stopped. I turned and looked back to the east, and I saw all 3 of my dogs standing in a line, shoulder to shoulder style. They were lined up facing me. Their ears were up and their tails were up. And they were all the same distance apart. I will admit it shocked me. I think I jumped, then I started laughing. It was an odd one, I'll tell you that. It was a strange sight, them sitting there all quiet and whatnot, but standing like that, like they are standing at attention and not moving. I called to them and they did not move. I started walking over, and the whole time I was calling. Even Cooter, who was always eager to play, did not move a muscle. He would not even look at me. Cooter had a real personality, so that was strange to me. Of course, by this time I was looking back over my shoulder, trying to see what they had in their sights. I could not see anything. I got over to them and started petting them. They just rocked back and forth as I pushed them, but they did not move and still would not even look at me. I have to tell you, that was really concerning. I never experienced anything like that before, and I had been around dogs my whole entire life. No, sir, that was just about as weird as it gets. I was about to pull on Laddie's collar when I see something across the bay. A thin fog had started swallowing up the shore, so I could not really make it out so well, but I could see a bushy animal coming down the rocks. At first it looked like a giant patchwork of fur, like an old-timer's fur pelts. It was big like a bear, but the shape was not the same, and it definitely did not move like a bear. Then the thing stopped on the shore across the crescent and stood there for a minute. The fog half hit him. I could not tell if he was looking our way or exactly what was going on. Then I could see he began moving down the shoreline toward us, and something still did not look right about the way he was moving. I just could not get my head around the thing. As he got closer, I could clearly make out it was an animal. Then it dropped to all fours and continued moving toward us along the shore. It was some kind of giant wolf, and I mean giant, a big son of a bitch. I turned back to get my dogs out there, and I was gosh darn puzzled. All 3 of my dogs were lying on their backs with their feet folded. I did not know what to think. I do remember feeling that maybe they had been poisoned because they were on their backs, lying there frozen. I mean, their eyes were open, they were breathing, but they were just not moving, and just staring straight up. I had to deal with this wolf coming at us, so I thought I would pick them up and carry them back to my truck. But I tried to pick up Cooter and got a mouthful of teeth. That dog had never so much as gave me a dirty look in the 10 years I had him. I screamed at him, but he just rolled his head back and froze in position again on the ground. I tried the same thing with Laddie and got the same response. I did not even attempt to pick up Rat because he was always ornery to begin with. "What the hell is wrong with you mutts?" I started screaming. I remember I looked up then because I will admit I was having some panic. I wanted to spy the wolf wandering a couple 100 yards away. Fortunately, the thing had not yet taken to running yet. But it had wandered closer, and I could see it was a massive, terrifying thing. I never saw a black wolf like that before. Not in pictures, not on television, nothing. It began walking faster in our direction, and then I watched the thing rise up and keep walking on 2 legs. I mean, it started walking on 2 legs just like a human. I thought, this can't be a wolf. And it was not walking awkwardly. It was walking naturally, but not like a man. I was still trying to figure out what the hell the thing was when it leaned forward and started running in our direction. Then it dropped to 4 legs, then up on 2 again. I hate to admit it, but I took off. I left my dogs there and just ran back to the truck. I felt bad. I know it was the act of a coward, but that is what happened. I had a rifle and a shotgun, both in the gun rack, back at the truck, and I kept thinking if I could just make it back there, I would get the guns and go back and get the dogs. I did not make it back, even halfway to the truck, when I heard the thing. I could tell it was a howl, like a husky dog or wolf, but it sounded like a scream of a person at the same time. And most of all, it was loud. Way too loud to be an actual person screaming. I got the gun and started back, and when I got back to the spot, they were gone. All 3 of my dogs gone. But about a year later, one of my neighbors, Brian Gilbert, told me he saw Cooter. I asked him, "Are you sure it was Cooter?" He told me, "I sure am, it was him. He had the same marks on his face, but he didn't act the same." Brian told me that he saw Cooter staring at him from the woods north of Hunter's Point. He said he stepped just outside the edge of the woods and stood there watching him. Then he told me that he heard other dogs barking and Cooter disappeared back into the woods. Yeah, he looked the same, but he didn't act the same. He looked like a wild dog. He looked different, Brian told me. Then he said, "I called to him, but he showed his teeth and started growling. Guess he joined the wolf pack." "Guess so," I agreed. "I would not want to be out there after dark anymore," Brian said. I had told Brian we were attacked by a wolf, but I did not share the whole story because I did not want to seem crazy and did not want them to know what a coward I was for leaving my dogs. Not that I could have done anything to stop it, but I still feel bad about it. But the story gets even darker. It was about 10 years later, long after all 3 of my dogs would have died from natural causes. I went on a fishing trip. Myself, Roger Jonas, and Bill Fenton were tooling around looking for a new lake to drop in. We tried one of the inland lakes south of Copper Harbor. We found a lake there. Never been on it before. It was overgrown, isolated, and wild looking. We weren't even sure there would be a lake there when we started navigating down the dirt road. And then the dirt road died, and trees stopped us from going any further with the truck. Then the dirt road died, and the trees would stop us from going any further with the truck. But we could see water breaking through the weeds, so we made the walk through the overgrowth. We stumbled down to the shore, and immediately we were all game. "Let's do it, let's put in. This is the place," Bill said, and we agreed. It looked like lake that time forgot. I thought there must be some giants in there. "What the hell? It isn't private property. Let's give her a try," Roger smiled. But before we could even turn around to head back to the boat, across the lake we saw 3 dogs walk out of the woods. These dogs were wild, muscular, shaggy, and dirty, and they stopped at the opposing lake's edge. They were not happy to see us. They ducked their heads and showed their teeth, and we could hear them growling. "Hey, that looks like Cooter, don't he?" Bill pointed. "I'll be damned," Roger gasped. "They all 3 look like your old dogs, Paul." He stopped staring. "Don't it? Same spots, same markings? How could it be?" "That ain't right," Bill shook his head. "It can't be," I told them. "They would be dead for years now." Then the dogs took off around the west edge of the lake, heading toward us. "Let's get," Bill said. We ran back to the truck. I shut the door of the truck just as Roger started backing out. I could see Cooter as he rounded the corner about 50 feet away from us, followed by the others. It was Cooter. I could see all 3 of them. Those were my dogs. How the hell could they still be alive? Roger wheeled the truck around and we started down the road. We could see the other dogs now were filling out of the woods to join them. "You see that? Where the hell are they all coming from?" Bill stumbled out. "The woods was full of them. We were lucky to get out of there," Roger exhaled. "I don't know," I said. Bill and I were out the back window of the trucks as we drove away. Bill and I were looking out the back window of the truck as we drove away. The dogs stopped chasing us. They started roaming in place, and we could see them. That is Cooter. I remember Cooter. That's your old dog, Paul. I don't know how, but that is your dog. Bill nodded to me. I don't know how they could still be alive, but they sure did not act old. They did not act like the dogs I knew. What the hell was that? Roger asked. I can't believe that. It's just not possible. I told them. Maybe they had puppies? Roger asked. That wasn't any offspring. That was your dogs, Paul, Bill concluded. Brockway Mountain Drive is one of the most beautiful places in the world. I was in the service for almost 10 years. I saw a lot of the world, and still that place between Copper Harbor and the Upson Nature Sanctuary is one of the most beautiful. But on that day in December, the beauty was lost on me. My car was a mess. It was this rusted old coughing Ford Escort mini station wagon. It was on its last breath, but I really thought I could squeeze one more winter out from it. But as I rolled to the top of the Brockway Plateau just west of Copper Harbor, I had had enough. It died. It would not start, and it immediately got cold as a witch's titty in a brass bra. I already had a rusted-out floorboard that caused snow and or slush to spit up in my face while I was driving, and the passenger window was double-thick saran-wrap duct taped together. So when it died on the top of the hill, I took a minute and got out and had a smoke. Then prepared for the ritual. The ritual was me heaving to push the car down the hill and pop the clutch to get it started. And today my hope was only to make it back home. I had to get a new car. The time had come. I put it in neutral and pushed the Escort to the edge of the plateau, and with the driver's door open, gave her one last shove and then jumped in. Down the hill I went. Shit! I popped the clutch, and for the first time, the damn thing did not turn over. It rolled to the lull at the bottom of the road and just stopped. Shit. Now I was stuck here until someone came along to give me a ride, and I had no idea how long that was going to be. And to make things worse, I was down to my last smoke. I did not even bother to push the Escort off the road. I was so pissed off, I just sat there and lit up my last Marlboro. I was leaning back, cold as hell, and facing west, looking at the snow, trees, and the little tiny unlined patched-up, pothole-ridden pavement with a giant animal walks dead center about 200 yards away. I almost choked on my cigarette. I was leaning back, cold as hell, and facing west, looking at the snow, trees, and the little tiny unlined patch-up, pothole-ridden pavement, when a giant animal walks dead center about 200 yards away. I almost choked on my cigarette. I felt all the hair on my body standing straight up. I lived in the Upper Peninsula, and we got so used to things, we sometimes forget that we are in the wilderness up here. And what the hell was this thing? I remember thinking, oh my God, as it stopped in the middle of the road, just started casually walking towards me. It was so terrifying for so many reasons. It was big, and it was coming at me. I was alone in a car that would not start. I had no idea what the hell it was. I immediately started turning the ignition. Come on, come on, come on, I started screaming. I was about to get out and run back up to the hill, to the plateau, to the east, behind me. The same hill I just had rolled down. But to my shock, the Escort started. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. I was so happy. Then this crazy-looking walking dog started yelling and began charging at me on all fours like a bull, galloping at me. I wheeled the Escort wagon around and puttered my way up the hill. I had already accepted death. That Escort wagon would not make a getaway from a child on a big wheel. All I could do was floor it and hope. I purred up the hill and made it over the peak to the other side, headed toward Copper Harbor. I was so thankful the car did not die on me. I looked back and saw the devil spawn standing on the top of the hill, all proud and boastful, howling and screaming. Please make it back to town, I kept saying, and I made it back to town. After that, I did get another car, but I never sold the Escort. I just could not part with her after she had saved my life from that DOGMAN. It started off innocent enough. We had a cabin in Copper Harbor where we would go play cards, drink, and fish. Then one day, Johnny asked me, "Did you ever hear about the Michigan DOGMAN?" I told him, "Yeah, I know, they tell stories about that." He said he had a plan to scare our friend and his cousin with a DOGMAN prank. His cousin Frankie was coming up from Cadillac to hang out with us for the first time, and he had never been to the Upper Peninsula before. Johnny told me that Frankie was obsessed with this DOGMAN thing because one of his neighbors saw it when he was a kid. The plan was that Johnny was going to patchwork together a wolf head, wolf fur, and sneak up on Frankie after we led him outside behind the cabin. "You sure you want to be walking around in fur back there? Someone else might not think it's funny and shoot you," I told him. Of course, Johnny had an answer for it. He always had an answer for everything. He told me he would be wearing a Kevlar vest underneath and shockproof helmet in the head portion. Well, I went to see his DOGMAN suit. It was an impressive thing, I will admit. He hung it out back and shot it. He took a bat to it. He used a bayonet on it. It really was a fortress of a suit. After the prank, I will use it as a bear suit. It's bear-proof, I'm sure, he told me. He must have spent a month building the damn thing. A month later, we were all in the cabin. We were laughing and getting drunk. We must have been on our third case of Paps. Then Johnny gives me the look and heads out. The plan was to give him 15 minutes and then take Frankie out to see the new boat I had ported over the hill. Then Johnny would sneak up behind us and scare the hell out of Frankie. What a hoot. Johnny and me were the only ones in on it, so I expected it would be a gas to see the looks on everyone's faces. About 20 minutes had passed and I pulled the guys outside to go see the new boat. We had not taken any more than a few steps outside when we all noticed the fog. This was serious, pea-soup thick fog. "Holy cow," Frankie said. "This is straight off Superior," Doug boasted. "It's gonna rain and cats and dogs tomorrow." We had to navigate slower than expected, but we made it down to the boat, looked around, and then started back. We were walking back, and I was expecting any minute for the prank to go down. It was the perfect night for it. I knew it was going to scare the hell out of these guys. It was going to be hilarious. I got more and more excited with every step, but it never came. I started to slow our pace, and I was stalling for time. "I need another beer," Doug belched. "Yeah, I'm getting cold," Steve echoed. I was thinking I would not be able to keep these guys out in the woods in the fog for much longer. And then I hear it. A bone-curdling howl. "What the hell?" Doug recoiled. They stopped. I was laughing inside, and I did not expect the howl, but it really made the moment, I thought. "It's the DOGMAN," Frankie whispered. "You might be right about that," I encouraged. "Come on, let's roll," Steve ordered. Steve started a soft jog, but we really could not go very fast in the fog. And to try to do so more treacherous than Johnny's fake DOGMAN. Then, maybe 50 feet behind us, blasted another odd, startling howl. It even scared me. I was not expecting it, so we all jumped into the air together. "Okay, this isn't funny anymore," Steve said. "It never was," Frankie answered. Then, just out of the view in the fog, came the howl again, even louder. "Oh man, this shit is seriously scary," I thought to myself. "Circle up, men, faces out," Steve commanded us. Steve watched too many movies and served too few years in the service. Never a good combination. I laughed. "Faces out?" I asked him. "Faces out," he ordered us as he pushed our backs together. "Did you say feces out?" I asked because I think I just shit myself. I joked. Then it got quiet as we could hear something walking toward us in the fog behind. 3 of us had flashlights and we shined them where we could hear the walking. I was expecting Johnny to jump from the fog because he had really worked everyone up into a frenzy. "If it's a wolf pack, we gotta make sure they don't surround us. Let's keep walking," Doug whispered. "Hold it," Steve said while he wiggled his flashlight beam through the fog pointing north. Then we all stopped cold. We could see this thing coming through the fog, about 6 or 7 feet tall. these pointed ears walking straight through the fog like hair on the devil's horns. "Dogman," Frankie whispered. It was all I could do to keep from laughing out loud. Then the dogman just stood out of full view in the dark fog. It was growling and snarling. "If this is someone playing a joke, you ain't funny," Doug warned. "There are 4 of us, and you are about to get your ass kicked, Rough Rider," Steve threatened. Then the thing moved. It threw something at us, and I could not make it out at first. It was a massive pile of fur. Steve kept his flashlight pointed in the direction of the dogman, while Doug scanned the thing that just dropped at our feet. That is when I caught sight of the Johnny's Kevlar vest. I didn't get it. Why is he crimping the joke? That's just confusing, I thought. "Where the hell is Johnny?" Doug asked. "Oh, his ass is not funny. He thinks this is cute," Steve said. We can no longer see the dogman in the fog. And then we hear maybe 100 yards away a wild howl, and then a few seconds later another howl even farther away. Doug screamed, "Is that you, Johnny? I'm gonna kick your ass." "Let's roll, that punk," Steve said. The 3 of them laughed and took a breath. The mood noticeably changed. Now they were joking and I was confused. We jogged back and they were looking for Johnny. "Johnny Wolfman, where are you?" Doug called. We walked back in the cabin and returned to drinking. Johnny did not show. It was a pretty good gag, though. Steve perked up. That shit looked real. "Yeah, I'll give it to him. That must have taken a full year to plan out," Doug laughed. "I don't know. Where is he? Are you guys sure?" Frankie wondered. Frankie got up, wondering back and forth. Frankie paced around the cabin and only drank in between concerned looks out the window. "Frankie, your cousin did this for you. It's all that Michigan dogman talk in the Cadillac. Doug started. He is rousing you good." We busted out the cards and cigars, and we started playing Hold'em and barely finished dealing when we hear whimpering coming from outside. We all got up without saying a word. Chairs were pushed back, scraped the floor, and we stamped toward down the drop bolt and threw it open. Johnny pushed his way in past us and slammed the door behind him. He was stuttering, he was shaking, he was bleeding and trying to catch his breath. He stepped back from the door and stared at us. As he talked, his voice was shaking so bad we could hardly understand him. At that point, I still thought it was part of his gag. He just didn't tell me about the twist so he could scare me along with him. But when I saw the gash in his face, I thought he was taking it too far. "What the fuck is going on, Johnny?" I slammed. "It's not funny anymore. They know you were setting them up." I walked over to him and grabbed his face. "This is going too far," I started, but Johnny interrupted. "Are you fucking crazy? Do you think I sliced my face up?" Johnny cried. "You better get that taped up," Steve said as he went to get that yellow first aid kit from under the sink. "Doug, can you run me to an MD?" Johnny asked. "What's going on?" Frankie asked. "Look, you guys. I was trying to prank Frankie with the dogman thing when something out there attacked me. It ripped right through the Kevlar. What the hell does that?" Johnny rambled out. He stood there breathing, his chest heaved up and down. The rest of us all stood there in silence. No one really knew what to think. And then Doug goes up to Johnny with the alcohol and bandages and sits him down. "Well, if it was a prank, you sure picked a hell of a thing to ruin your face for." Doug and Steve started cleaning and inspecting his injuries. "Yeah, this is too deep. We need to chopper him to the medic ASAP," Steve ordered. Steve's military jargon was not funny anymore. Yeah, maybe he was a little too into the whole super soldier action movies. But I gotta give it to him, he was pretty good in an emergency. And this thing suddenly turned into an emergency, because just after sitting him down, Doug had to catch Johnny falling out of his chair. He passed out, and that was when we noticed the blood pooling up in his shirt and trailing from the floor. We got him medical help in time. He had deep scratches, gouges, but nothing that hit an artery or anything. But it was certainly going to leave scars. I asked the doctor who cleaned up Johnny and dressed his wounds if Johnny could have done that himself. No. If this was a stunt, he had to have someone else do it to him. There is no way someone could dig a scratch from that cheekbone to the scapula like that. The doctor started. Then why would he do it to himself? No, I was just wondering if he accidentally took a joke too far. Never mind, I sputtered out. The doctor started walking away and then told me, I've seen bear attacks that leave marks like that when I was interning in Alaska. A bear? I clarified. Yeah, if it is a bear, we need to alert the DNR, he finished. Yeah, okay, understood, I finished. The next day, I retrieved the Kevlar fur mess left sitting down the hill from the cabin where it had been tossed at us. It looked like it had been crushed in a vise and twisted by a crane. I just could not imagine what could do that. Johnny later told me that the thing attacked him, bit him. His jaws just ripped right through my vest. I asked him if it was a bear. He told me, it wasn't a bear. Steve told me what you guys saw. He shook his head at me. It was not as big as a bear. It was a walking dog of some kind. It attacked me out there, and I'm wearing the thing, and it attacked me. Come on, you really didn't do this? I asked. Fuck you, Johnny spit out at me. Look at me, I'm mangled up for life. For what? I did not know what to say to him. That thing saw another walking dog out there, and it did not think it was funny. And then he got curious. I did not think that thing was real. How many more of them do you think there are? Is there more than one? In the years afterward, Johnny never tried to market the story, and he never wanted to talk about it. Then one Saturday, when I went to see him, we were hanging out laughing and talking about other stuff, and his face struck me. It really was so mangled up. The scar did not heal well. It was really a mess. And that was when I realized he had been telling the truth. It was never a joke, and it was not a prank. Something really did attack him that night.